You're my friend and a director of the Buddhist community, Risha Kosekai of the UK, RKUK, located in London. You were born and raised in Japan. You earned a degree from a prestigious university in Tokyo, and after that, you started to work in Mitsubishi Chemical, one of the largest corporations in the field of the chemical industry. But after working there for 4 years, you left the company and became a staff of Risha Kosekai headquarters in Tokyo. So, why did you leave a good company and join Risha Kosekai? And why did you come to the UK? What is your connection with the UK?
First of all, thank you very much for having me here. To answer your questions, let me start with the talking about my family. My great grandmother was one of the founding members of Risha Kosekai, and my family has been a member of Risha Kosekai ever since. But I always didn't appreciate Risha Kosekai. However, my attitude toward faith and Risha Kosekai changed drastically when my parents died. I lost my father when I was 22 and my mother when I was 25. And to state it further, I lost my grandmother as well, who I lived with when I was 20. So I had a feeling that I was quickly losing my family. I felt extremely lonely. Like I was able to talk to my family about anything. At the time, we had a funeral in the Risha Kosekai style. The Risha Kosekai members praised the deceased virtue, my grandmother and parents, in the words of transferring merits in the funeral. So furthermore, since my families were leaders in the local Dharma center, so many people kindly attended the services and said in their own words, like, they said, you really liberated us, bowing with their hands together in front of their coffin in tears. And I was so surprised to witness the greatness of the Lotus Sutra and Risha Kosekai. Yeah, actually at that time, I worked for that company you mentioned.
Sure.
Yeah, I enjoyed it and very satisfied with my work. But I was getting more and more interested in seeing the world that my grandparents and parents had seen. Everyone was liberated in real life. Another indirect reason existed, which was when I thought seriously about peace, I naturally came to the Lotus Sutra. I was passionate about charitable activities when I was a student. And what I studied at the university was peace studies. And also that was a time when 9/11 and subsequent wars in Afghanistan and Iraq were taking place.
I see.
Yeah, and in my course, I also visited refugee camps on the border between Thailand and Myanmar. And for my research, the more I learned, the more I felt that there is nothing more difficult than the word justice, because everyone has reason to just think their fight is right. The more justice there is, the more wars there are. That's what I thought. Observing that, I myself think, I want to find the right way. Third party.
I see.
Involved in that conflict. I was stand in front of this contradiction. But when I heard even a little bit of the Lotus Sutra at Risha Kosekai, and they said, practicing the Lotus Sutra at home and in familiar places would lead directly toward world peace. The profoundness of the Lotus Sutra and wondrousness of its practice attracted me. So I decided to leave my company and made Risha Kosekai my single focus. Yeah, I came to the UK initially as an international student sent by headquarters from 2015.
Okay.
At the time, I was the Gakurin Risha Kosekai Buddhist Seminary student at the time. I was doing a master's in development studies at university called SOURCE, University of London. My first foreign country I visited in my life
Mm.
was the UK. Yeah, when I was a high
Yeah.
school student.
Oh,
Just
okay.
2 weeks, just 2 weeks.
Mm.
I studied at University of York,
Mm.
experienced life in student accommodation, and did a homestay. They're very friendly. Don't you think, the UK and Japan are somewhat similar?
Yeah, like in what sense?
Size of country,
Huh.
being an island country
Right.
next to a continent.
Exactly.
That's why I came to study development study. I wanted to study it again, having the perspective of the Mahayana Buddhism, particularly the Lotus Sutra.
Uh-huh.
So when I look around me, I realized that the Lotus Sutra was not a major thing in the UK. If Risho Kosekai Center was based here, we could share true spirit and the practice of the Lotus Sutra the more. So I went back to the headquarters, and the headquarters said they opened a center in London. Wow, surprised.
Mm.
They said, the Kyoichiro, you just returned from the UK, but now go there again. I feel karmic connection with the UK. That's my story.
In your answer, you mentioned the family. How has your relationship with them changed since their departure? Are there any particular moments in which your Buddhist community back then or Buddhist practice has helped you stay strong and move on?
My father was 65 and my mother was 60. So I think they're young, still young. They both were ill. And their symptoms were not prolonged. And I got the impression that they were healthy until just before their departure. So as well as feeling a sense of loss, I also felt with a feeling that I didn't do enough. I should have expressed my gratitude, sincere gratitude to them while they're alive. When I was wondering what I could do for my deceased parents, the first thing I was taught in Rishoko Sekai was to arrange altar to do the Sutra recitation on my own and with the fellow Sangha members, to transfer and offer the merits of Sutra recitation for my deceased parents. It was a great help for me to realize that meaningful relation with my parents does not end when they pass away. It is related to the chapter 16 of the Lotus Sutra.
Yeah, tell me more.
The lifespan of the eternal Tathagata, the relationship between the Buddha and all living beings explained in the parable of the good physician.
Right.
That parable.
Right.
The Buddha Shakyamuni, the manifest body, enters into death. But from the perspective of the original Buddha, this is also a skillful means to an end.
Right.
And the purpose of this is to give rise to the hearts of longing
of
the living beings.
Right.
If one's mind is inflexible, the sutra says, and one's desire is to see the Buddha with all one's heart, then the Buddha will immediately appear and teach the Dharma. When I heard this story, the stories of the Buddha and my parents overlapped. So I felt the Buddha sent my parents for me because of my deep, unwholesome karma, which prevented me from realizing their true compassion until they died. I felt they showed me the Buddha's teaching costing their lives.
So tell me more about your Sangha. So who comes to RKUK and what kind of, let's say, questions do people tend to have and ask you at RKUK?
We are open to anyone. So people from all walks, of life come here. Some are new to Buddhism, practice at the schools for decades, even
Oh.
arriving at the Lotus Sutra, such as in Theravada or Tibetan. There are also people who have found their own way to Buddhism through Nichiren Buddhism. People can join the services and study sessions online for those who are distanced from London. So we also have the people from Wales, Scotland. The common question is about practice. We have a recommended chanting of the Odaimoku and other basic practices. People, they ask us, what kind of practice you usually do and what should be the first step. Each of us has a different age, different environment,
Right.
different life story. In other words, we have different karmic connection from the past. And so the Lotus Sutra also says, there can be no one size fits all approach. As a lay practitioner, we want to bring the teachings, bring the words into daily lives, reflecting on myself. Driving is difficult.
Oh,
While
I see.
driving,
I reasoned with that. Right.
It's very easy for me to be self-centered. While shopping, I recognize my greedy desire and stronger and stronger. In some cases, say, for example, there are new people contacting me and took my initial response as like the final answer. So I'd like to people not to just listen to what we offer at RKUK and understand the wisdom of the Lotus Sutra theoretically, but to try it out first. If you continue your practice with a Sangha for about, say, for 3 months, concentrating on seeking the way, you will definitely find something. And your understanding of the teachings will also deepen. I believe there's some specific, the established form of practice is important because these are kind of like a rehearsal. Our focus should be the real life. I don't want to forget why we practice Buddhism in Rishoko Sekai. Our life is not only in the Dharma center or at home altar, but we live with family members, we work with colleagues, we drive with other drivers.
Yeah, right.
And without that collective liberation or peace, any individual liberation or happiness will not be achieved. That's the Lotus Sutra.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing the part of your story. You also have a YouTube channel in RKUK, so I put all the links to your website and the blogs and Instagram in the description box below, so that viewers can check them out.